He had one of the highest IQs ever recorded. A child prodigy, a Harvard student at just 16, a man who understood the world better than most. But instead of using his mind to build something, he chose to destroy. He walked away from society, from people, from everything, and for nearly 2 decades, he became a ghost, sending messages not through words, but through bombs. Somewhere in the forests of Montana, far beyond roads, far beyond noise, there was a cabin. Small, silent, almost invisible. No electricity, no running water, just wood, tools, and isolation. If you stood outside long enough, you wouldn't hear anything. No machines, no voices, just the wind and the unsettling feeling that someone was watching the world from a distance.
Ted Kaczynski was born with a rare kind of mind, the kind that solves problems before others even understand them. As a child, he skipped multiple grades. Teachers saw brilliance, but they also saw something else: silence. Not the calm kind, but the distant kind. The kind that makes you feel like someone is there, but not really with you. At just 16, he entered Harvard University, a place filled with some of the brightest minds in the country. But he wasn't just younger than everyone else. He was alone. During his time at Harvard, he participated in a psychological study. At first, it seemed harmless, a series of interviews, discussions about beliefs. But it quickly became something else. Participants were placed in stressful situations, their ideas challenged aggressively, their identities questioned over and over again, for hours. Imagine being young, isolated, and repeatedly told that your thoughts are wrong, that your worldview doesn't make sense. Something in him began to shift, not suddenly, but slowly, quietly. Years later, he made a decision that most people wouldn't even consider. He left. Not just his job, not just his career. He left society itself. He moved to a remote area in Montana and built a small cabin with his own hands. No technology, no connection to the modern world. At first glance, it might look like freedom, a return to simplicity. But isolation does something strange to the human mind. It removes distraction and leaves you alone with your thoughts for days, for months, for years. In that silence, his ideas didn't fade. They grew, stronger, sharper. He began to believe that modern society was not progress, but a system of control. That technology was not liberating people, it was trapping them, making them dependent, predictable, replaceable. He saw the world moving forward, but believed humanity was moving backward. And the more he thought about it, the more certain he became.
Then, in 1978, something changed. A package arrived. Ordinary on the outside, but inside, a bomb. It was the first of many. Over the next 17 years, more packages were sent. Universities, airlines, researchers, people connected to the very system he despised. Each device was carefully built, primitive but effective, untraceable. Victims opened them without knowing, and in an instant, everything changed. 3 people lost their lives, dozens were injured. Across the country, fear spread, because this wasn't random. It felt targeted, intentional, like someone was trying to send a message.
The FBI launched a massive investigation, one of the longest in its history. They gave him a name, the Unabomber. But that was all they had. No face, no identity, no clear location. Years passed. Sketches were made, profiles were built, but nothing led to him. He lived in complete isolation. No digital footprint, no witnesses, just a man and his beliefs, watching, waiting, and striking when no one expected it.
Then came the turning point. He wanted to be heard. He demanded that a long document he wrote be published, a manifesto, not just explaining what he had done, but why. It spoke about industrial society, about control, about the future of humanity. Some people dismissed it immediately. Others felt uncomfortable reading it, because buried within the extremism, there were ideas that didn't feel entirely wrong, and that made it even more disturbing.
But among the millions who read it, one person noticed something different. Not the ideas, the voice. His brother. He recognized the way the words were written, the tone, the structure. It was too familiar to ignore. And in that moment, the mystery began to unravel. For years, he had been invisible. No mistakes, no witnesses, no clear identity. Just a name, the Unabomber. But in the end, it wasn't technology that exposed him. It wasn't surveillance. It wasn't the investigation. It was something much simpler. Recognition. When his manifesto was published, millions of people read it. Most saw ideas. But one person heard a voice. His brother. He noticed the patterns, the tone, the way certain thoughts were structured. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to create doubt. And sometimes, doubt is all it takes.
Imagine reading something and slowly realizing that the person behind those words might be someone you love, not a stranger, not a criminal on the news, but your own family. For weeks, he wasn't sure. He reread the text again and again, hoping he was wrong. Because if he was right, there was no easy decision. Stay silent and protect your brother, or speak and stop something that had already gone too far.
In the end, he made the call. He contacted the authorities, and from that moment on, everything moved quickly. In 1996, agents arrived in a remote area of Montana. No dramatic chase, no resistance, just a small cabin in the middle of nowhere. Inside, they found him, Ted Kaczynski, a man who had spent years avoiding the world, finally face to face with it again.
The cabin was exactly what you would expect, and nothing like it at the same time. Small, cold, minimal. But inside was a different story. Tools, writings, materials carefully stored. Everything connected, everything intentional. It wasn't chaos, it was a system, a life built entirely around one idea.
And that's what makes this story so unsettling. Not just what he did, but how clearly he believed in it. This wasn't random violence. It was calculated, justified in his own mind. He didn't see himself as a criminal. He saw himself as someone trying to fix something broken. And that's where it becomes uncomfortable, because history has shown us that some of the most dangerous people are not the ones who act without thinking, but the ones who believe they are completely right.
Even today, his ideas still exist. Discussions about technology, control, freedom, they didn't disappear with him. If anything, they became more relevant. We live more connected than ever, but at the same time, many people feel more alone than ever.
So maybe this story isn't just about one man. Maybe it's about something bigger, about what happens when someone stops trusting the world completely, when isolation turns thoughts into certainty, and certainty into action. Because the scariest part isn't the cabin, or the bombs,
or even the man himself.
It's the idea that under the right conditions, a mind can slowly disconnect, and no one notices until it's too late.
This is for real.